Good morning, everybody. This is IT Live, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm Tex Homer, joined by Eric Nalin and Coach Dub. We're going to do some depth chart takeaways. It's just a way for us to talk through different rooms, what we thought was interesting. They were spring breaking, but prior to that, when things get going, I think we have Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday practice this week.
Yep, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday scrimmage. I noticed we're giving New Mexico a lot of love. You've got Taos on your shirt. I've got Red River on my hat. So Charlie didn't get the message, man.
Nah, I missed that one.
Gotta be hanging out. Yeah, we went to Taos because my dad can't take elevation in Colorado. It makes him sick. So he was like, for some reason, we can do northern New Mexico, and he's all good.
Huh.
He can't go too
in
high
the air.
But
My neighbors are moving back to Florida because of the air here. They say I don't know, man. I guess pollen or something. Whatever.
There's gotta be something. Something's going on, guys. All right, head over to Inside Texas Spring Sale, 50% off right now. On 3, national football news, rivals, recruiting news, Inside Texas, everything. Texas football news, recruiting, analysis, all of that. We'd love you to join. You can join at the description below. All right, gentlemen.
Hey, you got to mention all the sports too. We cover all the sports. So we got, we even did, when the women play big college basketball games, we'll have some coverage there. But you got baseball had a hell of a series. Basketball, of course, carried the week news-wise for us, still carrying the week for us while we wait for practice to start back up. So we've been chock full of information well beyond football.
Yeah, I'm about to enlighten everyone with my extreme basketball knowledge. It's about playing hard is kind of my thing with basketball. It's really, you got to be tough and you got to be focused, So let's talk that. Sweet 16, Sean Miller hire looks to be paying off in year one. Also, like I said, go check out Keenan's stuff on our website. That guy understands basketball at a high level, and he will give you some really, really, really good stuff. I can't say the same for myself. Rely on me for your football knowledge. But what'd you guys think of the game, boys? On a run.
Look, it's good to be back. I mean, Sweet 16, I know it's been a long time, man. It's good to see some success on the men's side. The women are, they've been phenomenal, right? They look really, really tough. Gonna be hard out, or they may win it all. Who knows? But they're good, man. It's like the guys coming along. Like, we ended the season losing with 5 or last 6 or something like that, man. I didn't expect us to win a playing game. Like, I was like, okay, what are we gonna do? Now we're making a run. So Texas is the Cinderella team. I don't know, but it seems like it so far. They're making a run. Like, everybody's hitting their shots. I can't pronounce his name, but I'll just be like they said on the announcement, call him Book of Titus. But man, he's been balling lately in the paint. I don't know what it is, man. But he's taking off this tourney. So it's good to see. I don't know. I love having success. Maybe this is the year of the horns. Basketball's making a run, and we'll transition to football, baseball, whatever else. So I don't know. I'm gonna knock on some wood for good luck.
Yeah, I'm not a basketball savant by any means. I watched a ton of it growing up, but have kind of tuned out basketball for the most part. But I pay attention to the hires. You got to pay attention to the hires. We followed that hire pretty closely. I like the hire because I like a high floor. I can be a bit cautious at times that way, but I feel like the high floor is going to start getting the buy-in that I think that the fan base can ultimately create. We've seen DKR turn into a much better home environment over the last handful of years. I think the same is going to happen in Moody. We saw brief signs of it under Chris Beard. I think Miller can bring that back. They had that skid 5. They lost 5 of 6 in the SEC after a really good run. They won 5 in a row at one point. Road game over at Alabama. And a lot of fans are just ready for the season to be over. But this is why you always play, man. You got to get that bad taste out of your mouth. And the only way you can do that is by playing games. So take it back to football and Sark's first season when they lost 6 in a row. I think it was a lot of them in close games. They finished that season with the Rashawn Johnson game and beat K-State. And that gives you a certain bounce going into the offseason. So this just by winning that play-in game and then these next 2 games, it gives them a spring in their step. As Utah Horn mentions here, hopefully it helps on the NIL. It's proof of concept. But, nobody should be surprised by this. I saw, I laughed at the criticism that Sean Miller was getting at times during the season. Look at the dude's resume, man. I mean, it's an incredible resume for a coach that hasn't won it all. The guy knows more about basketball than any of us will ever come close to, even in aggregate. So let the guy cook and hopefully get him some help out of the portal. But I'm enjoying watching this team too. That last play where Cam Heide hit that shot, I think it was the only shot in the game. The way they set that up out of a timeout. Sean Miller is a real bona fide basketball coach that, Texas had briefly for a bit with Beard, but other than that, we haven't seen it since Barnes.
I'm a charlatan, but just from the distance, I loved Sean Miller's pressers. He would just go after his guys, man, and just it was cracking me up how candid he is. Normally in football, it's like you kind of protect your players. You're like, yeah, he knows he needs to get better at that, but Sean Miller was just like, we'll foul you any way we can come up with. It was cracking me up. And then Vic Shaver started doing the same in women's basketball. I don't know if he'd done that prior, but it's just funny how when you have 8 guys, it's a little bit different at how you can talk when you have like a whole army of players.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. The Cinderella thing is also funny because you're just lighting a match and throwing it on Twitter by calling Texas a Cinderella, and of course everyone bites. Can't be a Cinderella. You guys are too big. And then both arguments have points, and that's why it's really hilarious. But as soon as I saw that narrative start, I was like, this is going to be wonderful for engagement for everybody.
Hey, and another fun point about this tournament is, everybody else is out. Yeah. A&M got smashed. OU's out. Kentucky is like the inverse of Texas, in which they're the blue blood in basketball and not so much in football. They're out. There's, just Florida lost too. I think, did Florida lose?
Yeah, they lost to Iowa at the last second.
So there's a whole lot. I mean, it's, this is a tough matchup with Purdue. Based on my limited knowledge, I could tell that they shoot it really well and they rebound pretty well. And, they got point guard leading it all, Braden Smith. So it's going to be a tough game, but tournament's pretty open.
Yeah, it is. I think Matt Rule's turning Nebraska into a basketball school, man. It's crazy. What's up with that?
It's devastating to see. All right, let's talk. Let's put it back in my wheelhouse and talk some football. I think I can give you something there.
Yeah, that's all over our wheelhouse.
All right, let's talk some depth chart takeaway. I think the biggest thing is Seymour getting cleared. That's a huge factor for me because now the line you can see it, right? You're not like, well, what if this guy steps up? Now you have opportunities. Guys can beat guys or whatever, but it's interesting how just one player can really clear that up for you. And we got that done. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Look, I think you're happy because he's a guy who's played a ton of football. Like, experience matters when it comes to that. You look at a lot of teams who won championships in the past, like, it's an experience. So the fact that he's played a ton of football, it helps, right? You got some kind of baseline, like, okay, this kid can come in. Well, I won't call him a kid anymore because I don't know, it's maybe year number 6, but
he's 45 years
he can get it done, man. He can get it done. He's second team All-American, but he's played a ton of snaps. You look across the offensive line, everybody's played a ton of snaps, right? So that gives you some hope going into the season. But like you said, everybody has to come in and earn it, no matter where he's coming from, how many snaps he's played. I think the competition rises even more because people know, okay, he's a veteran's coming in. I got to step my game up even more, right? I'm not going to let him just come in and take my spot. And I love the attitude of the players. They're not going to concede to Seymour just because he's coming. So, but I love it just for the fact it's a veteran on the offensive line, somebody who's seen a ton. He can help you out in the film room and on the field. So I love it.
Yeah, I talk about the floor a lot. I just did with Sean Miller. This guy raises the floor to both the points you guys are making. Now at left guard, it's we've got a clear vision of how it can play out. But the guy's also got a little bit more pedigree than I think people realize because Miami took him out of high school. He's from South Florida. Even that was the Manny Diaz staff. But if Manny Diaz, if you're good enough for Miami to take you, then there's just some obvious traits there. Maybe he's short, but he's got longer arms, sort of like DJ Campbell, that sort of thing. So he's got the recruiting pedigree, and then he's got the experience. 840 snaps last year. I think only one penalty or one. He only gave up one sack too. I think in the last game of the season. I forget. I went over the numbers when they signed him, but he's going to raise the floor. But and that raises the competition, then that increases depth. So now you're looking a lot better across the line. But I also want to keep following Jaden Chapman's arc because I think he's coming into his own. And, maybe he can't beat out Seymour. I don't know, but he's getting better for the future and would be depth this season. So I don't know. You just add that one guy at guard and it feels like it brightens up the whole room.
Yeah.
But I would say the staff feels good about their line even without Seymour. So I know fans don't want to hear that. And it makes me a bit nervous too, but now they don't have to worry about it. You got Seymour and these guys that they really like. They're fond of developing across the board.
Yeah, the competition is what matters. Left guard, there were no functional competition, right? Throwing things at the wall and seeing what kind of stuck and nothing stuck. I feel a lot better now that I know that Jaden Chapman's starting, that there's likely a good battle that occurred there and a capable battle. So that makes a difference. And I broke him down. I think when we got him, I did a little scouting on him. I liked Seymour a lot. I thought he was sound. I thought it was floor. Remember that I always key in on floor. I don't care how high your ceiling is if you give up several sacks. It does not matter. It's a floor position, especially interior, because one mistake costs more than 10 solid blocks, right, for setting your offense back. So that's what I was excited for with the offensive line. Now,
yeah. So, well, let's look at the depth chart real quick. We've got it from a week of practice, and they go back to practice tomorrow. We're going to keep, hammering information. Should be a practice report after every single practice, and then Saturday's a scrimmage. So basically, 2 practices and a scrimmage. Left tackle, you've got Jordan Coleman with Jonte Newman behind him. Left guard, while we wait for Lawrence Seymour, of course, he won't be there until end of May or early June.
Yeah.
Left guard is Jaden Chapman, Dylan Sikorsky, and Jackson Christian has gotten some reps there. Centers Connor Robertson, Jackson Christian, Dylan Sikorsky. That's what they brought on Sikorsky. They didn't necessarily bring him in for this year. Obviously, if he develops fast enough, they're going to play him. But this is more of a longer play. He's still a young guy. Right guard Brandon Baker, followed by Devin Coleman, and then right tackle Melvin Ciani, followed by the true freshman John Turntine. Turntine, of course, showing a lot of promise already. And Brandon Baker, somebody I did not verify this, but somebody said that Joel Klatt on his podcast, we have a lot of respect for Klatt on IT, said that if he did a draft of every single class available, so freshmen to seniors, in which all players were draft eligible, he had March Manning number 3. I don't know. I'm trying to find out who number 2 was. Jeremiah Smith had to be number 1. Colin Simmons was 15, which that's too low. Sorry, Joel. But he had Brandon Baker at number 32. And apparently he just spent some time in Austin. So he must have heard some good things about Baker. Now, having Baker on there, not Goosby's wild to me, but we already know Goosby's good. So if we just care about the news on Baker. So, that's pretty promising. So, maybe we're underselling Baker a little bit at guard for this season, but we just want to hear more about it, from scrimmage work.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I still have the fear of offensive line, like the fans, but I do feel a lot better about it because I can name what I think the starting lineup is going to be, and that matters for me.
Yeah, the pads come on this week, right? So we've got to get a lot of.
Yeah, they went shells last week, but it's going to be they'll probably go full pads tomorrow. I need to find out. I'll get the whole schedule breakdown of what they do. We always like to break down what they're doing in practice. That way we can try to hash out zero sum a little bit better. That's always the problem with this zero sum. But the offensive line, I think, is in a lot better shape. And, one thing we wrote about even before Seymour was ruled eligible is that you could see that this offensive line should have a pretty clear identity. They should be good pass protection, pass protectors across the board. And it probably functions better on outside zone rather than down blocking. But I think they're going to, and they're already leaning into a lot of 12 personnel, which you expect with the tight ends. So I'm cautiously optimistic on the offensive line.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I think on Friday you had the kind of what's going on with the scheme. And you said 12, but we'll talk about offense and defensive side. But Sark seems like he's doing his typical 11-12 on offense, right?
Yeah, and one thing Joe noted when he went to that second practice was that they had the tight ends were kind of working in separate groups. Your inline guys and then your flex players, your H-backs, and so that would be Masunis and Spencer Shannon. Spencer Shannon, I've mentioned this a bunch since practice began. I saw him at the first practice. He looks really good physically. And so those guys are obvious inline guys. And then Charlie Jilick, true freshman. We don't expect to see a lot of him, but he's got a lot of size to him already. And then you got Emery Winston, Nick Townsend, then Emery Winston sort of as the move guy, the H-back. Sort of a guy that's going to come across emotional like you saw Nick Townsend. Now we don't know if he's going to get a handoff or not. He's going to go out in space. And then I expect to hear more about 13 personnel, 3 tight ends. Maybe that's a wrinkle we hear more about in August, but I expect them to go that route just because they have the bodies.
You also, Winston got best hands on the team.
Yeah, Winston. I'm not surprised by that because he's got. It's when certain guys have that natural pass catching ability, you can actually see it on huddle. The ball is just absorbed by him immediately.
Right,
the ball disappears, and that you would see that. Well, that was the first thing that caught my eye with Winston. That and he has good change of direction because he's not super tall. A lot of those guys lumber. Spencer Shannon's a good example of that, especially before he added the strength. The taller you are, the more you lumber. The guys in Nick Townsend, 6'3.5", I think is perfect wheelhouse for those guys to have good change of direction. Winston's about 6'3", So yeah, I'm really excited about him, and you know they've been excited about him since he got on campus last year. He made a lot of noise. Grayson Littleton, Dalen McCutcheon, and Emery Winston were the three guys that made the most noise last spring from a true freshman standpoint. So they remain high on Winston. Obviously, they love Townsend. Townsend becoming more of a route runner. That's the thing that he's had to work on. You know, last year they were just trying to get it. They weren't trying to overload him last year. They just wanted to get him integrated in the blocking game. This year, you're going to see him become a more well-rounded tight end.
Yeah, that's going to be nice. I'm trying to decide, should we flip to 12 personnel defense or stay on offense and talk?
Well, I think we should stay on offense. And, you know, I'll bring up that roster comment because I think the Coleman boys are undersold.
Yeah.
I just don't know enough about them. Like what?
Man, look.
Coach knows.
I'm just telling you, they've been putting in a ton of work. Like everybody else, spring break, and now they were working. Like they were not trying to take any days off, right? I think that's been their mentality since they got there. Like you want to learn, get the speed of the game. You know, what position am I going to play at Texas, right? Because they both played different things at Cedar Hill, tackle, guard, and moved around. But now they got a home and they kind of settled in. Like they're working their butts off to try to prove that they belong in the 2 deep and want to play, right? Like every kid, but they're really, really working at it. And they took on the mentality of we're just going to outwork anybody. It doesn't matter what the depth chart says, who's on the depth chart, who comes in, who doesn't come in. We're going to work and play. And so they put in a ton of work. But they all train together. Those two with Gooseby, Andre Kojo, some 2027 favorite kids that, you know, that's looking at Texas. Like they all train together. They really want it. They go against the Colin Simmons, you know, outside of practice. Like they want to be better. And so the Colemans are not going away. Like, I know most people, they weren't highly recruited or highly ranked. It doesn't matter. Like those kids are going to work. And so they're going to prove it. So I love the fact that, you know, Jordan and Devin both are getting a ton of reps, man. They're just going to prove to everybody that they belong at Texas. I vouch for them any day.
Yeah, I think a lot of people miss the tape. The quality of athleticism on the tape at their size is just, you know, maybe they weren't finished products or you know, they certainly weren't highly rated, but they had the baseline requirements to be really good once they have the other stuff too. And it sounds like they have the other stuff. Charlie knows that a lot better than I do on them. But the mental eval truly matters. And then you just, you know, they've got the size, the bend, the athleticism, the quickness. Devin played defensive tackle, which, you know, if you could play defensive tackle at a high level in high school, you're going to be, you've obviously got it for offensive line. We talk about that before, Connor, right? Where you see some of these defensive linemen should beg to be moved to offensive tackle just because their ceiling goes through the roof. I was at a camp a couple of weeks ago, Rivals camp in Houston. There was a 6'6", 270-pound defensive lineman. You know, he moved fine. He moved fine. He could play defensive line in college, but I'm sitting there telling every other guy that's evaluating him, like, I wish that guy would move the offensive line because automatically his stock would shoot through the roof. And so the Coleman boys, they do have that sort of defensive line athleticism, but more on offensive line bodies.
Yeah, and I don't even get, you know, it's like the corner to safety thing. Like, don't you dare call a corner a safety. But you have that with like defensive tackles and offensive tackle. It's like, dude, why? Offensive tackles get paid a ton of money, dude. Like,
yeah,
I don't get that elitism of like, I'm not an offensive lineman. It's like, guys, those guys get a lot of money. I don't know why they do that. Okay, let's talk.
They are different people though. Like they're different mentalities. They are totally different mentalities. You know, when DJ Campbell first got to Texas, and DJ Campbell played D tackle in high school at a high level. He was hanging out with all the D linemen. Yeah. So I mean, it is a difference. It's a different personality for sure, man.
They do. There's a different temperament, man. Offensive line is always those are the most interesting guys on the team because they're really aggressive, but also they just like engineering and like just like they're such a weird group, you know.
Yeah, but, they're often the biggest nerds on the team.
Exactly. Yeah, but you're going, if you want to hang out with somebody, hang out with offensive linemen because you're just going to hear a lot of unique, like different hobbies and passions that they have outside of football. Like,
or you learn how to invest like Hayden Connor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, offensive line has always been a weird group of guys because they'll smack you, but they're also just like nerds, like you said. I want to talk. Well, actually, before we talk wide receiver, let's hear a quick word from Academy Sports and Outdoor.
Oh, it's an auto worm bite. Turns out.
Giant. Oh, giant.
It's a giant. So.
Oh, it's a giant! Oh, it's a giant! It's a giant!
I've never caught a fish that big, never, and it probably won't happen for me. Wide receiver.
Yeah, you should, hey,
Disgusting.
they pull out some good trout out not far from Taos. I've caught a few. Wide receiver, I mean, that one's pretty self-explanatory.
Cam Coleman's going to start.
Yeah, Wingo came back last week. So you got Wingo on one side, outside, and then Cam Coleman, obviously. And then Dalen McCutcheon has been in the slot. Jermaine Bishop is going to be behind Wingo for now. I don't think we've heard the last of Bishop as potentially in the slot. Just, what's the path to the field? It's probably not. He's not going to jump Wingo, and he's not going to jump Cam Coleman. What's the path to the field? Probably easiest to integrate him into the offense at slot. But for now, he's been outside. You got Dalen at slot. Emmett Mosley's been out, obviously. And then Kalik Lockett behind Cam Coleman. Is there somebody else forgetting over there? Wide receiver? I don't mean to. Obviously, Chris Stewart and then Cohen Brown.
Did you say Kalik?
Yeah, Kalik is behind Cam. Yes, I mentioned Kalik. And then you got the other two freshmen. Everybody talks about Jermaine Bishop, but the other two freshmen are, Cohen Brown has created some buzz too. If you just look at the guy, it looks like, the NFL the blitz game. He looks like one of those wide receivers that they would have on there. He's just built up and super fast. They're very high on him. But don't sleep on Chris Stewart, man. He's flying under the radar. Again, this isn't about making noise right now or for this year. But Chris Stewart is a really well-rounded guy. Probably the best route runner of those three between Bishop and Brown right now. Most school, probably the one that understands, hey, where I'm supposed to be at what point. I think playing high school quarterback helped him out in that regard. So they did a really good job with that wide receiver class. It's not just Jermaine Bishop. The other guys are good too.
Is this our best wide receiver room top to bottom? Not just frontline talent, but just for the future and everything? Because we had AD and Worthy, but it's not like we had guys that we were super excited about at third string. So it's like just overall, you think this is the strongest room? Yeah,
it's got to be because overall depth. Yeah, obviously AD and Worthy, man, you'd love to have those guys. But, Cam Coleman and Wingo's a hell of a combo too. Coleman can be Adonai Mitchell without a doubt. Production-wise, Adonai Mitchell wasn't productive until he got to Texas. He was talented, and he balled out in big situations. Coleman, we haven't even seen production-wise, we haven't even seen him scratch the surface yet. And then Wingo, man, it's just a little bit, if he comes just a little bit more well-rounded, man, he's going to be tough to beat because everybody's going to be sitting on the short stuff on him. Yeah. Get better pass pro, and you're going to see him light it up down the field more. Got a little bit better as the season progressed. But, yeah, the wide receiver room is awesome. Again, Dalen McCutcheon is very talented and a really good route runner, and we know what Emmett Mosley can do. But they're going to have competition from Jermaine Bishop. I feel pretty confident about that.
Hey, Connor, I don't know. Look, it's like his lineup to me. Can we get 10 personnel or go just go empty a lot? Because it's so many weapons.
Not allowed.
You cannot keep everybody off the field. Like it's going to be hard to defend it if Sark decides to ever go 10 personnel just empty, which he probably won't do. But so many receivers. Like, what do you do? Who do you cover?
Yeah. And Cotton down here does us a solid. Mentions Sterling Burkhalter, the other Wake Forest transfer. He's a big kid. Now, you like that again. I'm gonna mention Floor for the 20th time. But if something, God forbid, happened to Cam Coleman, you've got a steady, experienced hand that's played a lot of football and can make plays. He's moving well. He's big. The guy could play at Texas.
Contested guy, which is my favorite type. And then also, I just got to double back. I love Kalik Lockett, man. Like, I want to see what he can. Like, he was one of my favorite in high school. So it is going to be tough. Sark's not known for rotating. That's why I thought it made sense to have Bishop at that behind the Wingo just to get him in the two deep immediately and get him easy reps. But yeah, it is tough. How do you get these guys?
I think Lockett's going to have a fairly quiet year. People are going to start questioning him, not realizing that Cam Coleman just took up too much of the oxygen in that room. We're going to see him flash at times, and then I think 2027 Kalik is going to not just play a lot. I think he's going to hit the ground running and break out quick. It's just sometimes you just got to wait your turn and keep developing, and then when you're called on, well, again, if he's doing what he's supposed to do in practice and in his limited action, they're just going to plug and play him. They're not going to look to go to the portal again.
That's what I want to see him in preseason. But it's like Cam Coleman's in front of you. It kind of is what it is. But
he's like a little bit smaller Cam Coleman. I'm not sure he's quite as fast as Coleman. But Lockett, his speed was underrated in high school. everybody focus. It's sometimes you're a victim of what you're really good at. Cam Coleman, everybody talks about his acrobatics and his hands, and nobody really paid attention that, hey, the guy's actually fast. I think Khalid Lockett is faster than people realize.
Well, they didn't. They used him so poorly. Like, he just ran basically 2 routes, and it was just fade, and if he plays off, you sit down.
That's it.
And so he was kind of forced into that role. And then also he just didn't have good quarterback accuracy either, man. So I just think there's so much more to Cam Coleman's game, because I just thought Auburn used him in the most boring way imaginable.
And the fact he's already getting overs and crossing routes at Texas.
Exactly.
I know it excites you.
Yeah. Well, because that's missing from his game, dude. It's just like, and he can do it. Bishop is so advanced for a young guy. He understands the nuances of playing wide receiver. Even watching his huddle, I think I did, with Paul last week. We did a video for Tuesday, and we kind of just played Bishop stuff. But he was just setting guys up, like real wide receiver, not just burning guys, taking steps and getting on their feet, making them make a decision, and then using his speed. And then we saw clips of him at practice just running routes on air, but he was actually running through his steps, and there was a defender there. I was impressed with his skill at a young age, opposed to just being kind of like a little quick guy,
Yeah, I think they were running fade. You saw him get back to the numbers, like stacking a DB.
Right.
Like most people just run straight. They're not paying attention. They're not running a real rep during practice. You can see him running with his head down and then look for the ball late, showing his hands late. Like he's already working on the small things that most people just kind of go through the motions. And so to see that from a young guy coming in like that, very impressive. He's going to draw a lot of pass interference because DBs won't know where the ball is because he won't give you any indicators until it's too late. So he has like the small things down already. It's impressive to see.
Yeah, he's got the very high football character. And that's not, just character in general, but as it relates to football, the guy really wants to be great. They ID'd that about him very early on. And just as he's the total package. If you say he doesn't have size, well, if he had more size, he wouldn't move the way he does. So who cares about the size?
Yeah.
I don't want him to be 190 pounds. I'm perfectly fine with him being a little wisp of smoke. And if you can't catch him, it doesn't matter. We saw that with Xavier Worthy. Jalen Waddle was like that before he kind of grew into his body. Devontae Smith was 166 pounds at the NFL Combine or whatever. Who cares, man? You can't hit him. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, and it's also, you're exactly right, Eric, where they're like, I wish he was 200 pounds. It's like, okay, you're going to lose all the traits that make him he would start playing like his version of 200 pounds. But it's like, and then they're also like, he's little. It's like, yes, he's always been little. He's learned and adapted and evolved, knowing how to get the best out of that size. So, it does kind of annoy me. Now, if you're a tweener, like you're like 185 and you're not that fast, then I want you to be 200 because now we got to use your size. But they did the same thing with Worthy a lot. And it's like, guys, the point is that he knows how to play. And that's his advantage of being a little quick guy.
And a lot of those guys are wiry strong. Worthy, man, there's some times that Worthy would launch into people. He was fearless. I think Jermaine has that same fearlessness about him. It's almost like an Iverson sort of Allen Iverson was a football player, obviously. And he had that toughness, that football toughness on the court. He was not big at all, but he was tough, mentally tough, physically tough. I think those guys are like that.
And I think that size makes you like that because everyone's like, well, he's little. And then he's like, okay, I need to overcompensate and be me.
Go watch some of his defensive tape in the playoff game, especially against Forney, Notre Dame running back now. Javian Osborne, the hit he laid on him at the goal line. Go look at him. He's not afraid to hit.
Well, you see the opposite sometimes with offensive linemen because they're just in regular daily life, they're huge and everyone's scared of them. So they make them like big teddy bears and they have to be very nice because everyone's like, if that 6'7" guy decides to be mean, we're all in trouble. So you'll see the inverse sometimes with offensive linemen where they take the aggression out of them just because in normal society, we don't want someone mean and that big. So you see the flip side of that for sure. Can we talk about –
Jermaine would have been a shutdown corner if he wanted to be.
Can we talk about the togetherness we can expect from this team? I don't want A&M to best us in that category.
This might be a joke. I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about with A&M beating Texas as far as togetherness. Texas played more together in the second half of that. The last time we saw those two teams on the field. Yeah. I don't know. The leadership is in a good spot. You got your de facto the main leaders on the team are Arch, Connor Robertson. Goosby's right there too with Connor because he's kind of got been there, done that. People respect you the better the player you are, and then Colin and Hero. And then every group has budding leaders, but there's also a lot of newness. So, we're not going to see Biles become a leader until maybe August or once, maybe, who knows, maybe he makes a huge tackle versus Ohio State and it kind of clicks for him there. But there's good leadership, but I think it's an ever evolving process. Some of the guys have leadership traits that they're still growing into. But it's Arch, Connor, and Trevor. I'll throw Trevor in there. Hero Canoe and Colin. Colin has made tremendous strides. I think he said in availability that the coaches challenged him during bowl practice to step up in that regard, and he really did. I think he was tremendous during the portal when kind of rallying the troops and trying to keep guys from everybody's thinking about leaving, not because they want to leave necessarily, but just because everybody's throwing there's a lot of people throwing money at him. So he was just telling them, hey, stay here, see the big picture. This is your year, and if you produce, everything else that you need is going to be there. He was tremendous in that regard. Obviously, his voice carries a lot of weight in that locker room. He's matured a lot in a short time on campus.
And that's actual leadership, right? Not just yelling at practice, like the actual behind the scenes, the personal relationship. That's the real leadership side. It's not necessarily always the movie. So I love Colin Simmons when he talks, dude. He's so intense, dude.
Yeah, and he calls people out when he feels like he needs to, but he can when he I don't know, man. You gotta have balls to ask that guy the wrong question because he'll straight
dude. Yeah. He's intimidating. Dude,
can you repeat that? Like the last thing you wanted.
Like, why is this 20-year-old intimidating me, man? I can't have Colin Simmons G check me out here, dude. He's an intense guy, man. But also with Colin, it's at first it's like, well, it's easy for the star player to, hey, everyone stay. But it's not. Colin doesn't play like Colin plays hard as hell.
Yeah.
There's no so it's not just, God did 90% of the work. He's really out there trying and chasing down running backs, 20 yards down the field. He's always done that, even in his high school tape. So yeah, I think that's a cool factor. What we're dreaming of is DK Metcalf. Yeah.
Not too many of those.
Yeah, not too many. Let's flip over to you want to talk running back?
Yeah, I mean, we can. That's not going to take long.
I just don't want to be the one skip one room on the offensive side of the ball. I think they're going to be better this year. That's my thought.
You think so?
Yeah, I think they're going to be better. Just watching them do drills, I was like, it's so different. Just them running forward for 10 yards in a drill, they're so much faster. It's their steps are so much quicker when they're making cuts. Everything was kind of just Clydesdale with the other running back. They just didn't have that pop in their step.
Yeah, they're way more explosive than last year. Deeper too, just a lot more deeper room. Yeah, Sark really only wanted to go too deep last year, and after Wisner was extremely limited with Baxter. He just didn't move the same. Hopefully, it works out for him at Kentucky. But they're just a lot deeper and a lot more explosive. You got Smothers 1, Raleek Brown 2. It's probably 1A, 1B. Right. Derek Cooper. There's a good chance Derek Cooper becomes that third running back this season. He's got to earn it. James Simon's not going to go quietly. James Simon is a pretty complete back. Right. He's got that experience, and we saw that light go on for Christian Clark. I expect the light to go on for James Simon in a similar fashion. He just needs more reps. So Derek Cooper's going to have to work very hard. But they like what he's got, what he's showing. The surprising thing that I've heard about, and I'll probably, the next time we see video or something, I'll probably be wrong on this. But the one thing I've heard consistently about Cooper is he runs with really good pad level. You don't always hear that about true freshmen. In fact, you hardly ever hear that about true freshmen, especially the taller backs. So already runs with better pad level than CJ Baxter did, which I think is very encouraging. He might be a little bit more nuanced as a running back than I gave him credit for. I'd love to be wrong on that. Yeah, I think he might be a little more nuanced, and so my eval might have been a little off there. And if so, then he's going to play a lot this year as sort of that. Just get him ready that you've got to play that guy. Because you paid a lot for him, but you've also he adds something the other two running backs don't have. He's got more size and more power, more downhill velocity. Yeah. And so you got to play him for that reason too. But you just got to play him to develop him. And we've heard that Jaluk is very, very high on him. So I'm excited to see him. He's one of the freshmen I'm most excited to see for sure.
Yeah. Nobody's mentioned him yet, Connor, but I'll go ahead and say, because he had a wonderful practice before he broke for spring break, was Michael Terry. Hey, look, you can't even get about him. Like, that's another guy in the running back room. Like, Who was
Ryan
running?
Ryan Niblett's in that group too. You know, this is
Lord.
look how deep they are, man. Look how deep they are. And we'll mention Jet Walker obviously because he's a true freshman. He's a little raw, but we heard he looks like a linebacker, and then you see him, he's bigger than half the linebackers. But Michael Terry is a massive guy. The one negative about Christian Clark having the hot hand in the Citrus Bowl was we didn't get to see any of Michael Terry, which Terry had good bowl practices. We kept hearing that, and then Christian Clark had the hot hand, and we didn't see him. So I don't want to forget about Terry either. And of course Niblett, they've got a certain plan with him where it's they try to use him as like a gadget sort of guy, but also when he's the lone back, not just when he's out there in two back sets right now. So they're trying to turn him into more of a feature back, but still taking advantage of his ability to out in space. That same stuff you can do as a punt returner, you can do as a receiver if you create the space for him, create the lane for him. So they're still trying to get Niblett involved. So we're just talking about way deeper than last year. What's that? 6 running backs, 6 running backs, right? That you could play this year. At least 5 running backs: Smothers, Brown, Terry, Niblett, Simon, and Cooper. 6 running backs you could play this year. Last year they had 1.5.
Yeah, good point. And they have situational value, right?
Yeah.
So you can maybe short yardage with Cooper, and then you have Niblett. I want to see Niblett's not like a pure running back to me yet. That's what development is for. But I'm excited about the room, and it just looks different, guys. They're going to have yards after carry too. That's going to be a big factor. Me and Paul did a video last Tuesday sharing their numbers, and they were both of our guys were number 1 and number 2 in value add in the portal as far as like getting extra yards, doing things above what they were supposed to do. So, all right, before we talk defense, let's hear a quick word from our main man, Andre the Lawyer.
Texans know when you're injured, there's one name that gets results: Andre the Lawyer. Trust the team that has secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans win their injury cases. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, wrongful deaths. Don't let the insurance companies tell you what your claim is worth. Andre the Lawyer will fight for you. His principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait. Call 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. Contact info is in the description.
Maybe Niblett can play that Keelan Robinson role in 2023. Yeah, but we don't really need it. We have the speed kind of already, so that's where it's tricky for me with Niblett, right?
Yeah, man, I don't know. Sark, I think you need it to the degree that you want to show it and have teams prepare for it and think about it and occupy practice time defending it, and then use it as matchups dictate. Maybe if a team is slower on the perimeter, we saw teams last year that were just bad on the perimeter. And you're like, geez, man, just keep feeding that. Vanderbilt comes to mind. You just kill them on the perimeter. Did that in back-to-back seasons. Florida was more exploitable on the perimeter. They didn't go for it. But I think it's just going to be matchup based. But yeah, you're right. You've kind of got Keelan Robinson out there already and Raleek Brown. So I don't know. It's a lot. I think we're going to see competition play throughout the season because if one guy has the bad game, another guy steps up. He could take over and get a lot more carries. There's just a lot of speed, a lot of guys that can go make an 80-yard play. So I don't know. They're not going to be able to figure out all their best utilities in practice. I don't think. I think some of it's going to have to be learned on the fly. And then defenses learn to adjust to what Texas is doing well, and maybe some other guy provides the counter that they need to make.
Yeah, it's usually like Miami used Devin Hester. He would have a couple special plays, but other than that, he was the main return guy. So just put him in, drop a play for him here or there. Like you said, take advantage of somebody's perimeter who has bad perimeter play. Let him get outside and do his thing. But other than that,
you got to work to keep Niblett. They had to work. The schools wanted Ryan Niblett. Obviously, he directly changed 3 games this past year. OU.
Yes.
That run of 3 games in a row, was it 3? I think it was 3 in a row. OU, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. Yeah. I mean, his plus minus last year, if you use a hockey term, was damn good. And keep in mind, it didn't even look like he wanted to field a punt the first month of the season. Yeah, he was a little gun.
Yeah, there were talks of like, why is he at punt return, man?
He was letting him hit the carpet. He just needed more He just needed more reps. But yeah, you gotta create these opportunities for these guys. Otherwise, you're going to lose them in the portal. And they love what Niblett brings to the entire special teams, not just punt return. And then that speed, on offense is something that Sark can use. Sark wants his wrinkles, and Sark will dial up a play here and there just to keep the defense honest, but also keep that player engaged.
All right, defense finally. So Sark has been playing 12 personnel, so that means we're going to go into our base. What does base mean, Eric? It means you take the nickel off the field and you have a Sam linebacker. So you're not going to get your Grayson Littleton necessarily at nickel here, but what's going on here? Let's go through this little depth chart. First thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, so just because you take the nickel off doesn't mean you have to take Littleton off.
Well, you can put him at corner, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what it'll be. I still think, and they have to earn it on the field. I still think it's going to be Littleton and Cade, and then I think I don't know the first signs of Matsko at nickel were that really raised my eyebrow because I'm thinking I bet they want Matsko at nickel, and that way they can have Littleton and Phillips on the islands. That makes the most sense to me. But I need to see more Matsko too. They really like him. The defensive line is deep, man. It's I think we all have a pretty good idea on the edge and defensive end and edge. They only call it, instead of two edges, they call it a defensive end and an edge. Colin, of course, and then behind him Smith Orogbo, who's looking good.
Yeah.
They're coaching Smith hard, which tells me that they expect him to play this year. And Colin is Superman, but you don't want him to play every snap because you're hoping to play 16 games. And then on the other edge, you've got the defensive end. You've got Lance Jackson, who is bigger, and you wait till we see him in August. He's going to be even bigger in August than he is now. Then you got Zena. They love Zena. Obviously, they went through great lengths to keep Zena on the roster. A couple times they went through great lengths. And then you got Colton Vosick. And I always forget to mention Richard Wesley, and I don't know why, because he's one of my favorite recruits in that class. I guess it's just because the expectations probably need to be a little bit tempered, just given how loaded they are. But they love him. They think he's a 10-year vet. He could play either edge or defensive end, and I do think we're going to see him somewhat sparingly this year, but he is going to play. Maybe not quite like Lance Jackson, but I think his presence will be felt.
Coach.
That's a deep room, man. Like, just to hear about that, and like you said, you forget about Richard Wesley, but
I keep forgetting about. Sometimes I forget about these super talented players. I just had to be reminded of Michael Terry.
Great spot to be in, man. Great spot to be in.
It is a great spot, and most people probably not talking about Smith Orogbo, much, but like you saw him a little bit versus San Francisco State, the get off he has, right? So
elite, second best behind Colin, second best get off on the team.
And that's not even to mention the fact that you could always. I know he talks about him a little bit with Brad Smith and Akpala down here at linebackers, but you still can add them in situational to rush the passer. Like, you got so many guys that can just get after the quarterback. I don't know, man. That's such a deep room, but it's a good problem to have.
Well, yeah.
They've got they got the physical size, and then if you're talking 4i, we're probably going to end up talking about Justice Terry getting a look there. He's out for camp, which is unfortunate because we're trying to put this whole puzzle together. Who's going to be where, especially with the new defensive coordinator. So it's unfortunate that Justice Terry's not there, but it just makes all the sense in the world to play him at 4i, where he can still be destructive as far as creating a pass rush, but also have the size to play in a 3-man front.
Yeah, and I'd have to see with Orogbo because, like you said, he has elite get off the ball, but I don't know his size or any other factor. But it's just like, that's NFL players across the 2 deep, maybe even 3 deep if Vosick can get healthy, right?
Yeah, he's around 240. Orogbo,
he's 240. That's good.
Yeah, the comparison for him is Joseph Osai. Like I've called him a Charles Omenihu version of Joseph Osai, and basically it's just a longer Joseph Osai that's going to stay at that position rather than growing out of it like Charles. Look where Charles plays now in the NFL. Orogbo's never going to get that big. Charles was always going to get that big. It was just going to take a little bit of time. But yeah, Orogbo's basically a reincarnation of Joseph Osai. I think, obviously Osai made more of an impact early on, but he's not going to move out of that position. That is his position. He's perfect for it.
Yeah. I'm going to go back and look on, run stopping and see where he's at. But when I watched him for Sam Houston, I was like, oh, I didn't know he was that fast. So that's when I realized I was like, oh, he's got an actual future.
He's going to be a good run stopper too because he's got really long arms, and those guys can coil up and create strength. That's what Osai did. He could coil up and create strength, and Osai just had a different mindset too. Hopefully Smith has that. I don't know. I didn't know Smith as well as I knew Osai, but yeah, if Orogbo has that physical mindset that Osai did, the sky's the limit. We're going to obviously there will be a drop off after Simmons, but it's still going to be a high level of play.
Sam linebacker, Brad Spence, followed by Okpala. So Spence is an interesting piece. This is one that me and Ian and Pack have been trying to figure out because we're like, should he play Mike? Because he has size at Mike. We're still stuck on that, by the way. And then it's Sam, and then do you just bring him as Sam as a pass rusher? What do you do here? But it is good to see that Spence is getting looks. Because didn't he get actual inside linebacker reps like very early in spring too before?
Well, he's still a backup Mike too. He's one of they still play him at Mike because the Sam isn't always out there. So yeah, he reps at Mike as well. Yeah, he's played linebacker. He played off ball linebacker last spring. Then they moved him. They flip flopped him and Trey. So he does have some experience at the position. We just we haven't heard of. I'll continue asking about him at Mike, but obviously Sam, he's tailor made for that. He's basically an edge. And then good enough athlete to do the zone drops that they need of him. They're not going to ask him to be, he's not going to be covering. He's not going to be covering a slot receiver or
right.
He's not even going to be one-on-one with a running back. It's just, he's just going to be a zone dropper. So he's got that. And then obviously you want to bring him on pressures as much as possible because he's got those traits. And then Okpala is one of the most natural pass rushers on the team. I can't say, there's so many, they've got a handful of them, but Okpala is an incredibly natural pass rusher. So Sam makes sense for him as well.
Man, I remember we had no pass rushers like 3 or 4 years ago, and now it seems like everyone on the defense is a pass rusher.
Yeah, that's one of the things PK did a great job of. He turned that room around really quick. And PK in Texas, because it's not like PK was a great recruiter necessarily, but he had a plan and he had a track record of development that others could sell for him on his behalf. Yeah, you look, Ovia Gofu was a guy that played edge for Texas, and I think 1 year he had 1.5 sacks playing over there at the Colin Simmons position. That's just that's not how it's supposed to be, man. So this roster is incredibly talented, man. Ben Davis, Blake Bryant says Ben Davis, and
tough.
Yeah, that was desperation mode. That was basically if you just played at Alabama.
Come on over.
Yeah, we knew you were from a good culture. We knew you had some athletic profile. So, yeah, it's crazy how many pass rushers we have, like up like into the third strings. So, and then they still use nickel on standard downs. So that way we can get Masco or Littleton or whatever on there. That's going to be important. I'm interested by the Masco thing because Masco was basically a man coverage corner. At least I broke down Penn State, and they had him manned up the entire game. Maybe it was different in other games, but I'm excited for this room, even though it's not clear yet. I think kind of whatever they end up with is going to be solid.
Yeah, all three of those guys can start. There's zero doubt about it. But I want to see how they're going to mix and match. One thing I'll be most curious about probably is, when they eventually do get to throwing a big nickel at it, who do they throw there?
Yeah.
Are they just waiting for Xavier Filsaime to come back? Are they going to do that with him, or could they leave Filsaime at safety and then at that point they would try Jordan Johnson-Robel there maybe? Because you got to feel that they're going to put a bigger guy there. Yeah, Jelani McDonald, I would think would be too valuable to move from safety to put at nickel. Obviously, he's done that in the past. I don't think they want to do that now. I think he means too much in the back end. But they've got options to get bigger there, but we haven't quite heard yet which direction they're going outside of the three listed here.
And then we heard the defense is strong, broadly speaking, but they're still learning to make adjustments on the fly. I mean, that's what the defense is. If they motion this, now you got to do it. One thing that I think it's I don't know if it's what's different about this team, but you said they're not doing pure one-on-ones. And I really liked that because they have to understand how they work within the grander scheme. And I think that's important.
Yeah, it's a couple different changes that they've made to practice. That's one of them. Instead of one-on-ones, which you can kind of shut your brain off on that, man. Just go defend the guy, right?
Yeah.
If it's 4-on-4, there's got to be a lot more choreography on the offense. Everybody's working in concert, and the defense has to be on the same page, communicating, and all that. It's just much more game-like reps than one-on-one. One-on-one's great for corners working on technique. It's great for receivers running routes, but they can all do that while simultaneously trying to process the play, what's happening. That's
Right.
more football than a one-on-one. So I when I heard about that, I just kind of nodded, like, maybe wonder why they weren't doing that already. That just makes a lot of sense. So I'm glad to hear about that. I think that's good for the quarterbacks as well.
Yeah, it's like all these coaches go to the same clinic or something, because you start to see teams around college football go to that model. You still have your one-on-one sometimes, but they go to the 4-on-4 or 2-on-2, whatever, and work either side of the field. So I'm starting to see that, I guess, a lot more, especially in the spring. I think it's good, especially if you have a new DC, you're trying to get acclimated to calls and reading certain route concepts. I think that's perfect. That's a perfect call to go that route.
Man, there were so many benefits to bring in the Muschamp, but it's the stuff that we only know about, like this stuff through sources, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff we don't know about, of all these little seemingly small benefits that you get from bringing in Muschamp. But then you're bringing in Muschamp, not just him, but you're bringing in sort of the Georgia template. So yeah, I like that.
Well, it's not a realistic simulation. It's like a hype and toughness drill, like the Oklahoma drill, right? It's not a great actual simulation, but it's fun. It gets the players excited. That's what one-on-ones is for. But with secondaries, man, it's all about spacing. You have to be able to see or feel what your safety's doing. If you're a corner, if you're a safety, you have to see what the corner's doing. One-on-ones doesn't give you that. Plus, if the routes change downfield, you might have to change guys. So I just think it's smarter, and I agree, Eric. I don't know why that wasn't being done.
Hey, can you bring up Antoine 2713's? Yeah. So again, man, this is driving me crazy. I forgot Jamarian Carlton with the edges. There's just, he's a true freshman, and I think he's going to end up being that 4-eye that is a very hard position to find. A guy that can still rush the passer from sort of an interior alignment, but also play the run. He fits it perfectly. Long term, he's going to need a little bit more development. Obviously, you got to be a grown man to play that position. Yeah, but I didn't want to forget Jamarian Carlton either.
And now, did they change the red shirt rules? I know they were talking about it, but I don't know if they ever did it.
I don't know if it got signed off. Basically, they're just they're gradually moving their way to just having 5 years of eligibility.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. So we'll see. Because I don't know. I mean, some of these guys could still get redshirted if it's the same rules. But
bring up Coach Steve Sarcasm here.
I love it. Yeah.
Taquan.
Yeah. So Taquan's an interesting one because and Charlie's very familiar with Taquan. That's how I met Charlie. Covering that one and Davian Curtis, right, Charlie?
Yep.
Let me say my piece before we let Charlie, the expert, have it. Taquan was like 240 pounds and looked like a really good defensive end edge prospect. And then the next time I saw him, probably only 4 months later or something, he had exploded. He put on a ton of size, still kept that movement ability, but he had long arms, and that allowed him to do a lot of the dirty work in the interior. He's still drawing a paycheck, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But I think Carlton is a much longer guy naturally. Hopefully Carlton has Taquan's toughness and willingness to do the dirty work. Guys like Taquan, Moro Ojimo, those guys are making it in the league because they will grapple and they will fight. And if Carlton has that, along with the natural advantages of his length, the sky is literally the limit with him. Charlie, tell us about Taquan real quick.
Yeah, so Taquan's always been like a football guy more than Jamarian was a basketball guy. That's why he had a leaner frame. But they looked similar, coming into freshman at Temple High School. But, Taquan started kind of gaining weight gradually throughout. And then I think before he got to Texas, I think he enrolled. He was already like 270, 280. And it was like, hey, man, you got to kind of trim down and shape it up. Where Carlton, they're putting weight on him. But, Taquan just had a different mindset. He was always been a grown man, kind of a quiet. They're similar personalities, though. They both don't talk much. Like, they pretty much show it on the field. They're pretty much quiet out the field, but on the field, man, they're like monsters. I think Carlton has a more of a space between that. He's very quiet, but on the field, like, he's a complete different guy than Taquan. Taquan's more even keel. He's tough. He'll get in the ring and brawl with you, but I think with Jamarian, man, he can turn kind of a wild animal. Like, seeing him play against Duncanville, he was matching talk for talk with those guys. He's chasing down Keelan Russell and the rest of them, and Jamarian's he's a different kid, but pretty much raised similar. Just tough kids who got out the mud. They're gritty. They'll fight you tooth and nail the entire way. I can't wait to see what Jamarian grows into. But when Taquan, I caught up with his mom this weekend. You know, he plays with Philadelphia now, and so trying to get his shoulder right. But Taquan's he's always been a big, strong kid. You know, naturally strong kid. You know, just looks like an NFL defensive lineman. But Jamari, I want to see where his body takes him, because like you said, he has the longer arms. He has a longer frame than Taquan did. So I want to see exactly what he turns into. Somebody said Alfred Collins. He could be that. He could be that tall Alfred Collins. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Before we wrap, I want to hear, fans always love this, the personality transplant of Muschamp. So what's going on? Eric, is this team going to be tough like Muschamp?
Yeah, I mean, that's source. What's he say right there? He says the defense takes on the personality of the defensive coordinator. And, you know, PK was a little passive. We saw the defense play a little passive at times. Muschamp, that's not going to be it's obviously going to go in the opposite direction, but the team still has to find it themselves. You know, you can't just go out there and act like it. You know, you've got to actually become it. I think that's part of the job of the coaching staff and the strength and conditioning staff to instill that in them. They all have it in them. You know, they don't even have to take on Muschamp's mindset. They can just take on Colin Simmons's mindset. A number of those guys naturally have it. Lance Jackson, East Texas tough. Anthony Smith, East Texas tough. Hero Canoe, I don't want to say German tough, but full-grown man. He's a full-grown man out there. You know, they've got the toughness out there. You know, Littleton, that guy, Honey Badger too. Like, he's not going to back down from anybody. Cade is a dog. Cade Phillips is a dog. So
dog.
Yeah, I think they got it in them. Jelani McDonald is a tough guy. Derek Williams will hit you. So I mean, they've all got it in them. They just, it has to be harnessed and continually cultivated. And then they need to go out on the field and experience some success. You cannot play fast and physical unless you can process and understand. You got to be confident in your duties. So that's a big part of playing physical. It's not just being tough. You know, you've got to know what you're doing, and you have to play assertively and fast.
Absolutely. Everyone head over to Inside Texas Spring Sale, 50% off. You will get our board Inside Texas paired with On3 and Rivals. Link is in the description. And everybody, this was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, and stay tuned in for the rest of the slate of videos today. Later, y'all.